This episode is about minutes 56 through 60 of The Empire Strikes Back with returning guest Suzen Tekla Kruglnska. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan. You feel free to call me Xanthi. And today we are getting into a very exciting set of minutes in The Empire Strikes Back. In this chunk of the film, Yoda finally reveals himself to Luke. It's a part that's very near and dear to my heart. And also, Han and Leia discover that they have some Mynocks that they have to deal with. I'm really happy to have Suzen back on the show. Suzen Tekla Kruglnska came on for solo season, and since then I've listened to quite a bit of your podcasts, and listened to a lot of your music suggestions. So,
Oh, great.
yeah.
Thank you so much for having me again. I've been watching your show and I can't, I'm just like, how am I worthy to be on the show? I mean, you just have the most amazing music experts. It's been fascinating. And, I'm nearly, as expert as anybody you've had on. So sorry to disappoint, but I'll be the everyman. I'm going to symbolize the person.
You will absolutely not disappoint.
But really, the guests have been amazing, just so great, and all just such nice people. I want to have coffee with all of them. Yeah, they're just such great people. Yeah,
it has been. Okay, well, I'm very happy to have you back. Before we get into the Empire Strikes Back, I'll just say that your episode on the composer, I can't say Christoph Komeda, Komeda. That was a really fascinating and I don't know, it was like a very wonderful introduction to his life and work. And I ended up listening to all of his soundtracks for Rosemary's
He's
Baby.
amazing.
And I really liked it. Liked all of his work pretty much.
Yeah. Even for the movies I don't like from Polanski, which, I hate the Vampire Killers, that silly movie, but oh my God, that soundtrack is just unbelievable. He's so overlooked. So that's great. I'm so happy. Just what a loss that he died so young.
Yeah, really tragic. Anyway, so now we're going to be talking about Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. This is a very interesting set of minutes because I think this is the moment where Yoda turns from the creature that we first meet to the wise sage that we know him to be. Although he always has kind of a silly streak, but we're gonna get that.
I've seen this movie many, many times. Obviously, I saw it when it came out. I was young enough to see it. I guess, I don't know, I was 11 or something. And I still didn't remember how impish and silly he was at the very beginning, that they make him like a gremlin, practically. I sort of forgot.
Kind of.
They kind of mislead you a little bit with that. It's sort of funny.
Yeah. Let's actually start listening to the minutes, and then we'll have some specific things to discuss.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the beginning of minute 56.
Will it take us long to get there?
Not far. Yoda, not far. Patience. Soon you will be with him. Quickly.
You have that nice thunder.
Why wish you become Jedi?
Playing it cool.
Mostly because of my father, I guess.
Father? Powerful Jedi was he. Powerful Jedi.
Oh, come on. How could you know my father? You don't even know who I am.
Luke is so agitated.
Know what I'm doing here? We're wasting our time.
I cannot.
We haven't even gotten to even before Yoda starts speaking, the music starts coming in. So that's kind of a hint that something is going to happen.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So Yoda's still kind of giggly and hee and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And,
giggly and hee is exactly it.
And you just think he's this busybody little gremlin. Yeah. And it's a big, huge turn. And Mark Hamill, again, really good acting. He had very little to go on. He wasn't hearing the voice of Yoda. He couldn't hear what was supposed to be coming out of this puppet's mouth. He just had to know the lines and act off of almost nothing. And he does a really good job with that. Just that like little bit of dialogue, getting agitated with Yoda. He turns on a dime, and it's very good, very well done.
Yeah. I mean, I think on set, Frank Oz was probably saying something, though I know that his Yoda voice wasn't dialed in yet. So it wouldn't have been exactly Yoda's voice. I saw some footage of him on set, and he sounds more like Miss Piggy,
Yeah.
like way more, way
Well,
more than Yoda already does.
this is interesting because, like, again, I did a series on The Shining, and this was filmed exactly on the set where The Shining was filmed. And so
Oh,
they put the entire Dagobah set. It's either in the where they filmed the Colorado Lounge, which was the huge, main body of the hotel in The Shining, or it was the ballroom, the famous ballroom with the bar where Jack meets Lloyd. But so either one, I'm not sure which, but those were both huge sound stages. And so with one of those, they filled it up. I actually was at the studio Elstree. I did a little visit there, and got to be like in the presence of where all this was filmed. And the Muppet Show was filmed across the street. That was
oh,
going on
okay.
at the same time as the filming of The Empire Strikes Back. So this was all very convenient.
Wow.
Yeah. The Muppet Show is filmed in Elstree, which is like outside of London, believe it or not. And so they had the set for Yoda was up on a platform, and the puppeteers were like in this underneath there's about a 4-foot or 5-foot drop. And so they said that Mark Hamill really couldn't hear anything. Like it
Oh,
was very
wow.
hard. He was really acting against nothing because it was very, very hard for him to hear anything. And so, yeah, it was, everybody gives Mark Hamill a lot of credit for this scene because it was just very hard to pull off.
Yeah, very well deserved too. Um, yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know that The Shining and the Muppets were so like close by.
It was like Star Wars and The Shining and then The Empire Strikes Back. And The Empire Strikes Back was almost in danger of starting late because Kubrick was spending so much time. He wouldn't stop filming The Shining. It was a huge problem. Yeah. And anyway, it's a whole interesting story. But and there were 4 puppeteers doing Yoda. Obviously it was they had a joystick for his eyes and the whole thing. It's
Wow.
really really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Um, yeah, I did see that whatever documentary is on Disney Plus where they do show like the how high like that high platform and everything. Maybe it was the Elstree documentary or something. I don't know. There's a few. There's a few good ones.
There's a few little bits here and there where you could see it, yeah, like sort of what it looked like. It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here is when Luke is basically starting to has just lost it. He's been playing along for long enough in his mind. It's been about 5-10 minutes, and finally, it's funny that Yoda name dropping his father is like what does it for Luke. That's what does it.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd almost think he'd kind of figure it out. Like how does this little imp know who my father is? He
You
should
would
have
think
made
he'd
that
figure it
if
out.
he was yeah, but it's sort of cute that he just is so dismissive. He's still in smug mode. He's so dismissive of this little creature. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the music that enters, this is the cue 6M2 Yoda's teaching, but the original spelling of it in John Williams's score or notes or whatever was Yodel's teaching with an L.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's funny.
yeah. All right. So let's pick up right there.
I cannot teach him. The boy has no patience.
You will learn patience.
And there's Obi-Wan with the Force theme.
Much anger in him,
It's the Obi-Wan theme.
like his father.
Was I any different when you taught me?
He is not ready.
Yoda.
The Force theme in a
I
minor
am
mode.
ready. Ben, I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him I'm ready.
Ready, are you?
Okay. I feel like there's already kind of a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, what's your take on what we just heard?
Well, it's a little heavy-handed, but it's like Wars theme, Star Wars, everything Star Wars. It's
Yes.
and, we're gonna even more of that song, and this whole segment is just really all over the place. It's kind of amazing. Like um, it's like what's the word? I don't want to say schizophrenic because that's such a stupid word to use, but you know what I mean. It's like that feeling that
Yeah.
what people used to think of as schizophrenic, where it's just like going from one
It's
thing to the next
frenetic.
thing,
It's
to the next
like
thing, to the next
bouncing
thing.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bouncing, but it's zigzagging back and forth all through this whole segment. So it's sort of funny, but it works, because it's you're kind of caught up in this turn and figuring this all out. And so you don't really notice how kind of disjointed everything is. And it just subliminally, of course, you have that feeling of Star Wars. It's just like, again, goosing you with that Star Wars magic, almost it's almost like a team spirit thing. Like, this is just like they're kind of rebranding. We're branding Yoda with the Star Wars thing. You know what I mean? Like putting those themes in there, and that's fine. It totally works. Like, why not?
Oh, I actually see it sort of more as like a triad between, um, well, if we reassign, or okay, the Force theme was originally for Ben, and the main theme originally was really for Luke, and we're about to get Yoda's theme too. So because this is a conversation with Ben, Luke, and Yoda, it is kind of like those three themes are bouncing off of each other,
Yeah,
like those characters are.
yeah,
But it's hard for me to hear this scene now after it's already been in, I don't know, collective consciousness for so long. Um, I hear like spin-offs happening as I'm watching the
yeah.
original thing as well. Um, and so yeah, it gets a little bit convoluted where I wish I could go back and experience this for the first time. Uh, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just, they're establishing that this is an important Star Wars moment, people, like you need to hear the theme, and just beyond the Force theme obviously makes a lot of sense every time you hear Ben's voice, but I think that little interjection of the classic, is sort of saying, this is really important Star Wars material right here. Yoda. So, and I think it helped to, I mean, they did it so well. Yoda was so well done that was such a risk to do a puppet character. I mean, they were just that could have just really undermined the whole movie if they didn't pull it off so beautifully. So I think they needed to really hit it hard.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
in the context of this film, like up until now, we haven't really heard Yoda's theme full out. We've only heard hints of it.
right?
So I guess this is the moment. Well, maybe I should keep playing so that we can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So main theme.
I am ready. Ben, I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him I'm ready.
Ready, are you? What knows?
And now?
Ready. For 800 years have I trained
Here.
Jedi.
This is the
Don't
B
you
section
like
of the Yoda
one
theme,
who is to
which is
be
interesting.
trained? The Jedi.
But it
must
doesn't
have
last
the
long.
Deepest commitment. The most serious mind.
We have that serious brass thing. Like it really is kind of his monologue is scored. Basically.
Yeah. And it's like they're building up to that perfect point where they're finally going to go into his theme. They're just branding it and putting underlining it in yellow magic marker, and and just like building it up to that beautiful moment when they begin his theme, where it's like, okay, now here we go. I don't know. It's really, it goes very well with the dialogue where suddenly now he's saying, I've been watching you all along, and yeah.
Well, this whole section strikes me as a very operatic type of thing where, sometimes I feel like in Star Wars it's more common during important dialogue for the music to drop out so you can really focus on the dialogue. And in that sense, it sort of almost becomes more of like a play at that point.
Yeah.
And here, the fact that music scores this whole monologue that Yoda gives, it raises the, I guess, mythological quality of it. It raises the, I don't know, it kind of makes it instantly like places it in a different category. Yeah, important.
Important, right?
Yeah, important. And also, um, I don't know, it's like almost like they knew this would be I don't know, mythical is like not the right word, but like archetypal, like I don't know, it's just a very, I don't know, it's a quotable little section. There's music. It's a whole thing. You could excerpt that monologue and there would be music to it. Like it's all very there. And Yoda says so many things and his sentences, I feel like they carry so much. There's not very much repetition in what he's saying. He's dropping a lot of consecutive bombs. Like I've been watching you, like this thing with Ben, which is like, oh my God, Ben's here too. Like it's a very concentrated minute, really. All of this takes place in 1 minute, which is wild,
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like I think what you were trying to get at was like it has a story. This is kind of the almost fable or fairy tale, yeah, like that kind of almost childlike, this is where you get overlaps much more with like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, where, and even the early drawings of Yoda look like Lord of the Rings characters. With these kind of elf hats and stuff like that. So, but this is definitely the part of Star Wars where you're a little more into real fantasy instead of just sci-fi. And so the music reflects that. And then his theme is perfectly written sort of in that way too, I think. His theme has a little touch of a lullaby to me, It has that a little more of a like children's story quality to it or something like that. It seems
interesting. Yeah.
I don't know, it's sort of how it hits me, yeah.
I can definitely hear that too. And I think the instrumentation has a lot to do with it, but also how it has that lighthearted B section, which in this case, it's interesting that his B section is coming in first here. But I guess John Williams is sort of giving something that's not as recognizable first. And I don't know, maybe he didn't know it was going to be a B section at this point. Although I'm sure he did. But anyway, here let's go back and hear that because it's a very lighthearted, just couple of bars. And what we're going to hear is like the upper woodwinds and celeste. So it's going to also have a kind of a sparkly feeling, and it's very dotted, and I'll explain that in a second.
Ben, tell him I'm ready.
Ready, are you? What knows you ready? For 800 years have I trained Jedi. My own counsel will I keep on who is to be trained.
And so now I'm going to play that in the soundtrack so we can hear it better. So he will learn patience, much anger in him, like his father. Was I any different when you taught me? He is not ready. And then Luke, of course, his theme. Yoda, I am ready. I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him. And then he hits his head. And then Yoda, ready are you? What, know you ready? For 800 years have I trained Jedi. And here's his theme. I was like... It's a lot of parallel fourths. It's very dotted in rhythm. Do you know what I mean when I say dotted in rhythm?
No.
Okay. So like a straight rhythm would be like, it's almost like swung, where it's like there's a lilt to it. And so dotted it means like basically adding fractions of beats to existing notes. So a note that would be like not dotted would be something straight, like one, like, and then dotted is like,
yeah, Like there's a lot of that in the Imperial March, right? Like there's little bits of dotted.
Yeah,
like
there is.
that-
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, and it's very here it's very playful. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely very playful, but it doesn't last long. It's almost like he's recalling the 800 years that he's been, or 700 years that he's been training Jedi. It's a very
Yeah.
like I don't know, Yoda
Yeah, well,
kind of
that's
reminiscing for a bit.
Well, again, the dialogue, at one minute, Luke's really upset and then he hits his head and it's a joke. That's obviously supposed to be a joke where he hits his head. And so it goes just so back and forth between dark light, dark light, dark light within split seconds. And the music just goes right along. It's just like,
Yeah.
yep, we're right there with you. It's a pretty amazing.
But like even the jokes are like symbolic. Like Luke
Yeah.
being like, tell him, Ben, I can do it. Tell him I can do it. And then he's literally like hitting his head with like, okay, boy, you need to sit down a little bit. Like,
Yep.
Luke, you need to calm down. Listen to Yoda for a second. Like, don't get up so
take
quickly.
a seat. Take a seat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, okay, we'll continue. I'll continue playing. And then this somber thing happens. And here we have the Yoda A section, finally. On the horn. And that's when he's saying that all his life he's been looking at Luke.
Yeah.
It's flowing. His monologue flows it's like kind of flows like the Force, I guess. It's going to many places. And I would just want to go back to the dialogue part so that we can hear it in context again, because when the somber brass comes in, I feel like...
Father.
Was I any different when you taught me?
Here's not ready.
Yoda. I am ready. Ben, I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him I'm ready.
Ready, are you? What knows you ready? For 800 years have I
Alright.
trained Jedi.
So here's the dotted
Come to well I
melody.
keep on who is to be trained. The Jedi must have the deepest commitment.
And then we have like a G minor. And it goes into D major.
A long time have I watched.
So now we're in a major theme.
As he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was. What he was doing.
I find that part of his speech interesting because he's basically saying like, all that binary sunset stuff from A New Hope that everyone was so inspired by, and Luke was like looking, toward a future life. Yoda is saying all his life he's done the binary sunset thing, kind of putting it in a slightly more negative light.
Yeah. It's like sort of the first big like kind of philosophical twist, where you were thinking, oh, that's this is Luke's fate, and he's this young man who's going to grow and has this future, and he's looking towards adventures, and then Yoda's kind of like, that's the first philosophical twist of like, no, that's not what he should be doing. He should be
Getting to
thinking of the
work.
present. Getting to work.
Yeah. He's dreaming too much, but not doing, perhaps. And then I guess this is the music halts, like as Yoda's pointing his cane, his stick accusingly at Luke, and Luke is like startled and he looks up kind of ashamed. And then here the the cellos join the horn, picking up the melody.
Adventure. Excitement. A Jedi craves not these things. You are reckless.
So was I, if you remember.
Back to the Force theme with Ben
He is
coming
too
in.
old. Yes, too old to begin the training.
But I've learned so much.
He finish what he begins.
I won't fail you.
And again, Luke's theme,
I'm not afraid.
serious minor version.
Yeah. It's ominous.
You
Yeah,
will
almost.
be.
And this really cool
You will be.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the way they end that because it's like it's almost dreamlike, you know. It's not so much like horror movie note where you're gonna you know, this is gonna be ugly, but it's a little more like it's a swirling, you know, kind of you picture, you know, swirling and almost a dreamlike quality. So yeah, it's interesting and but ominous, but not like overly ominous, you know, just sort of like yeah.
You're entering a wormhole type of thing.
Yeah.
And the sort of dovetailing clarinet and bass clarinet thing. And what I mean by dovetailing is like one person plays something and then the other one kind of plays the same thing and they kind of overlap a little bit. So it sounds continuous, but it's like two different voices actually. It
You will be.
So one's lower and one's higher. Yeah. And in the score, dovetailing literally looks it looks something like this. Where you can see like basically the same type of gesture, but you know, the top one line is playing it and while they're resting or holding, the bottom line plays it. So they kind of, yeah, like a waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before then, Yoda's theme kind of ends or it kind of reaches this chord that I find ominous, slightly ominous. Let's see.
Will he finish what he begins?
No, it's before here.
Remember,
He is too old.
No, it's before here. Okay. Go back further.
All his life as he
we
looked
go.
away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. Adventure, excitement. A Jedi craves
F
not
sharp minor.
You are
And so basically what's happening is dee, 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 dee. And I find this is kind of unexpected
Yeah.
to land on this minor chord because what we're used to hearing is something more like dee, 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 dee. More like a major 7 chord. And so it's a darker place than Yoda's theme normally goes.
Yeah. He just does that so much. These just little tiny nuanced touches, like right before Yoda's theme starts too. Like there's just this one point where it sounds whimsical, and then there's just a dark note, and then you go back up into Yoda's theme, and it's great because then it's just not corny. You know what I mean? It's just not corny. It's just like there's just this little dark edge to this whimsicalness and this little green creature and this little, like, again, a little bit of like a Lord of the Rings environment, but it's just got that darkness to it that yeah, I don't know, it makes it so you know, it just adds so much depth.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it is very like archetypal and it's very like a fable and there's like all these themes. There's Yoda's theme, A and B section. There's Luke's theme coming in all minor when Luke is talking and being resolute. There's of course Ben's theme / the Force theme when Ben is showing up as a Force ghost. But I don't think I think it could have been so much cornier. I think
Yeah.
the way that the things are connected, like the glue that kind of makes it all go together is very, I don't know, it's very good glue. It's very like, the edges are very, I don't know, it's the little touches. It's like the F sharp
Yeah,
minor chord. It's like the little pause and then the sort of switch to, the brass leading us into the theme kind of unexpectedly. It's sort of, yeah, it's these little edges that are smoothed out or that I don't know, make it special. It's the trimmings, it's the fixings. Yeah.
It's deftly. I don't know. It's some reason that's the
Yeah.
word that pops in my head. It's very deft. But yeah, I think that a lot of other people, like again, it's just that's where the magic is. Like you think of even directors who can't pull it off. Like to me, again, Ron Howard. We talked about that when we did. So like, he always goes for the cornier edge to things, or there's people who just don't have that. Like enough of a dark side. I need that. I know I need, again, it's a little bit of a matter of taste, but I really love when there's a little injection of a dark side, and it just, keeps it from being, it's always kept Star Wars from being too corny. That they've always handled the dark side well in a, even though it's such a fantasy, they've kept it, a little bit realistic.
Do you mean like the dark side, capital dark side? Or do you mean just sort of the dark edges in general?
Kind of both things in
Okay.
a way. I mean, like on the one hand, it's the classic and good versus evil. But because you have like Yoda putting this philosophical twist in it, and then later in the Disney movies, Luke putting in all these philosophical twists, and they're always kind of playing with that, like how do we balance this, and they always kind of bring in this sort of almost Western versus Eastern philosophy, that's really nicely done.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so the part that we're switching to now, or if I just keep playing, you'll hear that there's no music
A reckless.
So was I, if you remember.
after we finish the scene, of course.
It's too old. Yes, too old to begin the training.
But I've learned so much.
Like his father before him.
Will he finish what he begins?
I won't fail you. I'm not afraid.
You will be.
Dovetailing. Dreamlike.
You will be.
And now we're Star Destroyer, asteroid, Imperial fleet is around Vader's ship, etc. You can hear it.
But it's also it's a good because knowing the next scene, it's great because it sets you up for so we have this little pause. You can reset your brain while you're watching these spaceships shooting things in the sky, but then we go into a really kind of a horror movie scene, and so Yoda getting really like as dark as Yoda is ever gonna get. You will be. Yeah, it's like that's a great. It's so great. Sets you up for this next horror movie scene, and
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mynock thing is very horror movie, and the music is too.
Yeah.
This the end of at the end of this Luke Yoda scene, Luke's entire like the pitch of his voice, the sort of calmness in it, the sort of focus in it has also completely changed. Like, I do believe that he is sorry for how he acted, and I do believe that he really wants to give this a solid try. It's the way that this scene, just in the span of a minute, like where he starts, like, this is ridiculous. Like, you don't know my fault. The change that he has already made is pretty big.
Well, it's like Ben. I think hears Ben's voice. He's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, just one more thing I want to squeeze in. Before we leave Yoda, is did you ever notice that he's wearing like a little musical instrument on his neck? Like this. I only just learned this. I never noticed this. Yeah, he's wearing on a little rope, and you only can see it right towards the end of the scene. You'll kind of notice he has on a rope around his neck a little like it looks like almost a pan flute. It's made out of reeds. It's called the Blissel, Blissl, and it's kind of like a pan flute made out of reeds that he apparently was very good at playing. Like I didn't know this. Yeah, I just was kind of just doing my research. So they never it's just something that they added for texture. Just having whatever with his crappy robe, but if you look at it, you'll see, it's definitely looks like a musical instrument that's that's just hanging off of his neck like a necklace. It's really hard to notice, but you have to look. And so I was just wondering if I'd love to know if any fans have come up with like Yoda music, because he's been living there for so long, and he's had nothing else to do. So the theory is that there it is. The theory is that he got very good at this because he didn't have a lot else to while away the hours doing. So
That's
yeah,
wild.
yep. Little
Yeah.
extra music note in Star Wars. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for telling me. I really like knowing about the canon musical instruments.
Someone's
And
got
this
to
is
write.
like such a big one that I missed. This is
Someone
amazing.
someone should write music. Yeah, that's like, supposed to be what Yoda would have done,
Oh man. We also need to
Wouldn't
hear
that
the
be
ballad
fun?
chord. It would
Fan
be.
music. Fan music. Yeah, instead of fan fiction, fan music. People must do that, right?
They must. Although I feel like doing fan music based on like giving a sound to instruments in the universe would also be like, I mean, it would still have to be like fan, you know, the mechanic, it would be having to make some choices about how the mechanics of the instrument must work and what might be possible, but it would be a very fascinating um, experiment.
Right.
Like, I definitely like trying to figure out how instruments would sound and if they, like going through the Cantina band, for example, like listening to the song that plays and looking at the instruments, trying to think like, okay, so that one is making that sound and that one is making that sound. Is
Yeah.
this match? Is this lining up?
Or the singer, were you the one who talked about the singer in Solo where
Yeah.
it has like no body, so there's no way that like you can have that lung power. Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I like that too. Yeah, that's fun.
So according to Wikipedia, in the legend section, the blistle was a musical instrument that had 3 pipes made out of some form of wood or organic bamboo type material. It had a column of attached rings on each side of the outside pipes where the rope/string was threaded through to form the necklace. These instruments were maintained with a blistle tuner. Jeez. Jedi Master Yoda carried one. Okay. Wow. Okay. Great.
There you go.
Yeah, and a blistle tuner is in the Star Wars Episode 1 visual dictionary. That's so random.
All right. Yeah, I just came upon it. I did, I was like, well, I'm, yeah. Anyway, Yoda's. I was just reading up on Yoda, like the puppetry of Yoda. I've been a little puppet obsessed lately, so I was sort of curious about all of this stuff. So yeah, Yoda's. I'm glad you gave me this Yoda episode because I've been like, I love puppets. I'm a big puppet person. So
Oh, good. And Yoda is a very good one.
he's great.
Okay,
Brilliant puppet.
for sure. Okay, so we are about to enter the Falcon. So, one of the smaller Imperial vessels is hit by a huge asteroid and explodes in a brilliant flash of light. The cockpit is quiet and lit only by the indicator lights on the control panel. Princess Leia sits in the pilot's seat. She runs her hands across the control panel as she thinks of Han and the confusion he has created within her. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I meant to pause it before so I could warn everyone of the jump scare, and then I just got scared myself.
Did the job. It works. It works. Whether you see it or not, it works.
It really works.
That's so funny.
Okay.
It is. It's a great jump scare. And I love the lighting. Again, I don't, we're not talking visuals, but I love the lighting. That's a really beautifully shot scene where she's in there. And then the sound design is great where you're hearing the firefight muffled because they're inside. You hear the sort of muffled sound, but you also hear the ambiance within the ship for some reason. It's just it's amazing how they did that. You had talked about that in a previous episode where you kind of sometimes feel like you're in this echoey chamber, or you have that feeling of just being inside. For somehow they got the ambient sound of being inside a ship or inside a cave. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, and I like how they go from first the scene is here, I'll put an image on screen. First, we get this really quickly and we hear it really loud, like what's happening out there. And then it's the perspective shift, like the sound, we go to the inside of the cockpit. So we get to hear what she's hearing on the inside. We get to hear it on both versions. So the contrast is, I don't know, it makes it, easy to feel and situate ourselves
Yeah, you feel like they're very deep. You can feel like they're very deep underground, but they can still hear all that loud noise. But it's so
It's really
muffled.
far. Yeah, exactly.
And again, that lighting that just in that shot you showed, it's so horror movie. Like it's so exactly straight out of a horror movie. It's great.
What makes this look like it's straight out of a horror movie to you?
Oh, it's just so dark. And I mean, the light underneath her is if she's almost holding a candle beneath her. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I see.
right.
She is lit from underneath.
Yeah, and then just even the colors of the red and the white. It's just something so ominous. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. It looks a little bit bluish here too, but I also know that color correction is perhaps different on some versions of the film. So I don't know.
I mean the lights, but just the little pinpoint, those little those little
Yeah,
tiny
like the
lights,
buttons
red
and
and white.
stuff.
Yeah, that red I think is a little. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but certainly just the lighting, how they lit her is so exactly. You don't see that too much in these Star Wars movies where it's lit just like that. It's very, very haunted
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. It's interesting because in the other part of the Falcon, eh, there is more lighting clearly, but
Yeah.
Leia's the one that got scared. It's almost like she was
Yeah.
reading something scary in her bed or something.
Yep.
Yeah. While everyone else, still downstairs, kitchen lights still on,
Exactly.
So the jump scare. Okay. Yeah. The
Very well done jump scare.
very well done. It works on me, unfortunately, every time. So, um, and I think what also worked, I think it helps that there's no music before then. And I think it also helps that Leia herself, like Carrie Fisher, her scream there is very convincing. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Was that, do you know, I mean, was that the exact monster they had? I know that, again, with the new editions, like they they kind of improved the monsters. I'm wondering if that was the original or if
oh, the
that was an
Mynocks?
updated. The Mynock, yeah, that
Oh,
Mynock right there in the window. In the window, I'm just curious. It's really well done. I mean, they were so good at what they were doing. It may be, but I was just wondering if that was updated.
it's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but suddenly
Yeah.
I'm looking it up. I will say though that the Mynocks, well, I I have a bit of sound design information to share about those. Um, although perhaps we could wait until we hear them a little bit more. The screenplay does describe them
Uh-huh.
as, let's see, it says, suddenly something outside the cockpit window catches her eye. The reflection of the panel lights obscures her vision until a soft, suction like cup attaches itself to the windscreen. Leia moves closer to see what it might be. Large yellow eyes flash open and stare back at her. Startled, she jumps back into her seat, her heart pounding. There is a scurry of feet and a loud screech, and in the instant, the eyes are gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't show eyes. They don't show eyes. They just show the suction mouth kind of.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe it is a change. I certainly know that the Wampa was changed, so I guess why
Yeah,
not
it looks
them?
it looks a little more sophisticated than they would have been able to do that. Just like a little bit to me. It looks a little more sophisticated than they would have done. But I could be, I could be wrong. I should have looked it up. But anyway, Mynocks, yeah, they're I like that they're just like an annoying creature, like a possum or something.
I'm
Bats.
actually, they're one of those creatures that I feel like I never get a close enough look at to understand what the deal is with them. Like I know that they fly, I know that they are kind of look like bats, but in this moment there's the suction cup, like it kind of looks more like a squid or something.
Yeah, lamprey.
Yeah. Let me put an image. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, there are eyes. There are eyes.
Oh, I
but
see.
they're not. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can barely see them, but they're not glowing eyes. Yeah.
yeah. It is sort of like hammerhead eyes, no, or the
Yeah,
eyes are kind of
yeah.
on separate stalks or something.
Yeah.
It is a very interesting design, and the suction cup, I think, is just what gets me. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so we're still in no music land when Leia
Sir,
runs
if I may
out.
venture an opinion.
I'm not really interested in your opinion, 3PO.
Something out there.
Where?
Outside in the cave.
There it is. Listen, listen.
Are you crazy?
I just got this bucket back together. I'm not gonna let something tear it apart.
Oh, then I'm going with you.
I think it might be better if I stay behind and guard the ship.
Good idea, 3PO.
Yeah.
So charitable. And where I'm about to stop, where I'm about to start again is where the horror music starts up. And this is the cue 6M3. This is not a cave. It starts with high-pitched violin tremolos, which is, we'll hear it. Let's see.
Oh, no.
And with a cello bass thing. Here's the tremolos.
Ground sure feels strange. Doesn't feel like rock.
There's a lot of pauses.
There's an awful lot of moisture in here.
Soft.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to put up an image because the lighting here is also very horror movie-esque. And this is when they are checking things out and they're wearing masks over their faces, obviously, which is why their voices also sound, kind of
Yeah.
far away, and, they're modulated by something that adds like a layer, I don't know, an extra layer between, the characters in their natural state and the situation that they're in right now.
Yeah.
It's funny because looking back at this, it makes me realize how, like, this looked to me, it looks in line with Solo, a Star Wars story.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe more so than I gave Solo credit for at times.
Well, it has like graveyard mist, which is kind of funny.
Yes. It reminds me of the graveyard mist that was present when Han first saw the Millennium Falcon, when Lando was first taking him there to the junkyard, or, where the Falcon was impounded. And so I guess in Solo, we see that mist and we see the Falcon, but it's accompanied by that like kind of magical like music for the Falcon. And
Yeah.
here it's the horror stuff. So I feel like maybe here it just makes more sense in my mind. But yeah, these masks are definitely, yeah. They're
Not very
definitely
sophisticated.
it's interesting. Yeah, I don't think I registered the masks. I think now just in like 2020 and beyond, I'm like notice masks more when they're present
Yeah,
in
yeah,
movies.
right.
Um, yeah. So before we continue, is there anything about the sound, the ambiance?
Well, I like how you almost don't hear the music starting because you're distracted by the sound of the walkway coming down, and they kind of blend together. So it's very subtle how the music comes in. But then yeah, there's this wonderful like almost stomach. You feel like your stomach's dropping. It was like boom. That's
Mhm.
interesting. And then following that are the sort of magical harps, bling bling. So it's a combination of like, this is bad, but it's also kind of like there's something like they don't want it to be, because it's almost a humorous horror scene. It's almost funny. There's a punchline to this. It's actually a really fun, almost funny punchline of why this is all the way it is. And so I like that they kind of throw both, just like the last scene with Yoda, they kind of throw both those things in. You have a little bit of horror, but you also have a little bit of like fantasy, bling, bling, bling kind of, like sparkly music going on.
When you say there's sort of a punchline to the whole thing, do you mean the space slug, or do you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. That
Yeah,
you know, you didn't like. I mean, I was a kid when I first saw this, so I totally fell for it. I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. Like, I had no idea they were inside the stomach of something. And I don't know, maybe if I saw it when I was older, I would have guessed it right away. But it's just a fun punchline where it's you didn't know that's it's I think it's a little bit of a joke, in a way.
Yeah, I think so. I I love it. I have my little space slug right here.
Ah,
Um,
yeah,
it accompanies me in
I
my
like
studio.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
awesome.
that will come out more. That will come out more next episode when the space
Is
slug.
it that looks like a sock puppet? Like,
It
is that
is.
made out of
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
It's
awesome.
a.
Did
Uh,
did you make it?
no, it was a gift to me.
N-
My brother's
Is it
girlfriend
yeah.
made it. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome. I
gave it
love
to,
it.
well, yeah. I have a Star Wars craft book, and so she borrowed the craft book and made me that, which is in the craft
Uh-huh.
book.
That's
And I
great.
was like, that is the best gift ever.
Yeah, it's awesome.
um, so I want to go back to what you said about the sudden, the downshift that you mentioned. Um, okay.
This ground sure feels strange. Doesn't feel like rock.
Was it before this?
It was right when you started, right when you hit it. It
Oh,
was
okay,
right when you
okay.
hit it. It was just there, right? Yeah.
Oh, then I'm going with you.
I think it might be better if I stay behind and guard the ship. Oh no.
Right there.
This ground sure feels
Yeah.
strange.
So I think what's happening there is literally like there is a glissando down happening in the low strings in the cello and in the bass. And a glissando is like, well, I mentioned before that there's this tremolo that's happening, and a tremolo is, the horror thing where you kind of tremble the bow back and forth rapidly. And the actual amount is not important. That's not even notated. It just in the music, it's just slashes are through the note, which just means like go as fast as you can. And then a glissando would be like gliding down. And here, what's happening is the tremolo and a glissando.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see it like in the music. You can see that down glide where it says slow glissando on the low
slow
string. So it's literally going like,
yeah.
and it's happening in multiple instruments. So it's I don't know. It's like it's a very visceral feeling that goes very low, and like the bass actually, the bass goes extremely low. Like almost some of the low notes, you feel them more than you clearly hear them. At least for me.
Yeah, visceral is the word. Like, it feels to me like your stomach, like when your just stomach is dropping, when you're just kind of freaked out, or something terrible is about to happen. Yeah, it's got that visceral feel to it.
Yeah, it's definitely horror. I wonder, like, I'd be interested if anyone listening or watching has like horror movies. Like, I feel like horror film has its own sort of language of scoring, and I'm just curious if there's sort of like I don't know, like a kind of an in-depth analysis of horror movie scoring, and how maybe, I don't know, this sort of language has developed.
Yeah, that would be so much fun to like kind of study that. Yeah, to sort of follow even just the history of horror movie music, how it's been handled over the years and how it's taken on its own kind of language. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting subject matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue listening.
Doesn't feel like rock.
There's the magical sort of flute, but it's
There's an awful lot of moisture in here.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
So I hear like I'm
Yeah.
hearing like a synthesizer.
Watch out! It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, what I thought. Mynock. Chewie, check the rest of the ship. Make sure there are no more.
Again, there's like
attached.
it's
Chewing on the
sparse.
power cables.
Mynock.
Go on inside. We'll clean them off if there are any more.
Okay. I meant to warn you again for that, but instead I just said K. Like, K, everyone, don't you know that this brace yourselves. Yeah, what
Well,
do you
it's fun-
think of the score?
It's funny
here?
because Han's just like, oh, don't worry, no big deal. It's just Mynock's, like whatever. You know, again, he's just but the music's telling you something else. Like the music's saying, yeah, no, we're not done. We're not, like you could tell something else is gonna, it's not done.
Yeah,
that
the
something else
music
is
doesn't
coming. So,
lie.
yeah.
Well, sometimes.
And it even has like almost a footstep at that one point. There's like bloop, bloop, as if someone's sort of creeping along. And there's that one point where you sort of hear a little something like that.
Yeah, the pizzicato.
Yeah, something like that. It's like a boom, boom.
Yeah, let's. Okay, skipping kind of. Oh, not that. Okay. Okay. Yes, low pitched tremolo. Here are the footsteps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the cello, bass, and celeste kind of hitting notes at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you almost picture someone tiptoeing through a creepy house.
Yeah. And then when this high-pitched fast stuff starts happening, it feels like I don't know, it really sounds like bats have started flying through or something.
Yeah, no, you can almost feel it. Like you almost feel like you can, it's just it's almost so easy to you can't help kind of visualizing what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, because rhythmically it's like happening so fast. It's like and the notes are like very staccato, they're very short. And it almost is like the beating of the beating of the wings, or it's whether it's scurrying or beating or something fast is happening.
Yep.
And something sort of out of control. It sounds very uncontrolled.
Yeah.
Let me keep playing. Okay, watch out. And it's sudden. Yeah. Oh, that horn cluster that comes in. It's
really
all
that's
these
beautiful.
layers. Yeah, and you can you can clearly hear the different layers that are happening. It's very cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool. It's so complex. And at the very end of it, again, I can't help it, but it reminds me a little bit of the Penderecki ending of The Shining. Like there's a sort of a trombone sound like sort of at the end that reminds me of, because the whole little bit there reminds me of Jack going through the maze at the end of The Shining, because it's so cacophonous and so layered, and they had done that, but you hear this kind of blah kind of thing that's going on underneath it all in The Shining, and you just hear it at the very end of that. You hear that kind of exact same kind of, I don't know, just I can't help it. It just jumps into my head.
Oh, cool. Okay, I need to rewatch that because it's been a while It's been a while, but
Yeah, the maze, the music during the maze scene is just like unbelievable. It's similar to that where it's so multi-layered. You're like, how did they even do that? Like, how did they even put that together? Like logically, it's really amazing. But he just layered music here. It was all Penderecki music. It was Gordon Stainforth. He just layered it in a way that was just magical.
okay, like existing music.
Yeah,
You
it was
sort of just
existing.
re-edited it.
Yeah. Kubrick said, "Here's a bunch of music." And let him go, and it was just very creative the way he did it. But
Interesting.
yeah, but there's a touch of that here, both
Yeah.
in just the whole little segment, but at the very end, this kind of weird trombone-y sound that was very much in Penderecki music.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try to break apart some of the layers. All right. Nope, that's too far. I'm like, where is that? Here we go. Nope. Oh my gosh. I'm in the soundtrack and it's a very long track. Let's see. Okay. Okay, off the top of my head, obviously there's flutes and piccolos, so we have very high-pitched woodwinds.
Yeah.
I mean, it may just even be piccolos kind of doing a very quick, like, and then they have this part where they go, like they go very, very, very high up. And at the same time, we have, I believe it's snap pits. I'm always hesitant to do it because snap pits, well, okay, it's like,
I have no idea what that is.
okay, it's like you, like pizzicato is plucking. See, I
Right.
hesitated because it is kind of, it's a little bit abrupt. It's a little bit, sometimes I wonder
Violent.
like, oh, I don't really want to
Violent.
do that to my strings. Yeah, it is violent. Yeah, and so if you're watching on YouTube, like I'm like snapping the string. It is pretty violent, so. Okay, normal would just be like, snap is like,
Yeah.
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 So we can hear the strings snapping like that. And at the same time as the very, very high pitched piccolo. So the contrast in that is. And then we have piano also hitting very high cluster chords. In fact, I believe, at least in the in the live to picture score, the piano is notated like this, where you can't even see notes. It just says highest cluster.
Wow.
So they just want you to go, like,
Yeah.
to, just really just smash it
Yeah.
up there. Just smash it up high, like. And at the same time, I should have provided more context. At the same time, the piano is doing also the lowest possible cluster. So, yeah. So imagine just taking a piano and then just like going bang up the high part, bang in the low part, bang it at the same time,
Yeah.
kind of like you're flapping your wings, just like going bang, bang, bang. So, yeah, that sounds really fun to play.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing muted trumpet as well.
That
Kind
part
of-
right there. Trombone or trumpet, right?
Which
Could
part?
be trombone. The boing.
Oh, okay, yeah. That part is horns and trumpets and trombones. It's like
yeah.
many. Let's see. It was before then, but yeah,
This
I know what
is
you're talking
so-
about.
The more I'm hearing this, it is so exactly the maze scene. Like everybody go look that up on YouTube. The maze, like when Jack's
I'll put a link in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, it's so exact. It's so similar. It's really something. Like it's really similar. So I think I'm going to put my 2 cents in as Penderecki being an influence on Williams for this part of it. I don't know.
I think that's, yeah. I mean, I believe John Williams is definitely aware of Penderecki, and well, I mean, plus Penderecki is a pretty big figure in music. as well. Um, and then just kind of diminuendo,
Yeah.
leaving space for some harp. Yeah.
I mean, it was traumatic. It's traumatic. It's so crazy. It's traumatic. It's really beautiful.
I think one of the things that really elevates Star Wars, at least like the original trilogy, that elevates, people's first opinion, first perceptions of Star Wars, which I would think is the original trilogy, is just this silly Mynock thing. It's scored very seriously. Like the score elevates these movies, 100 totally. I'm willing to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. It's just, yeah, this is not a wasted scene, even though like it is supposed to be sort of silly that these bats are just gnawing on the power cables, And it does again like end up with a punchline. So it's not like, there's playfulness to it, but the horror is just like perfectly done. I mean, he does not skimp. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
everything is so 100%.
Yeah, and it's almost it's like the same thing that's happening in the Yoda scene where everyone involved played that off so genuinely, not like this is a joke that we have this like puppet here. The whole thing is it's scored very genuinely, heartfelt. Mark Hamill's performance is very genuine. Um, yeah, just big. I have so much respect for the people involved in making this and just treating it with with so much, I don't know, reverence and just, I don't know, going for it, I guess.
Yeah, you can't say enough, about even again just the sound design with the droid sounds and the flying sounds and the special effects, and I mean it's just like nobody expected it. When they were putting the original together, nobody expected it to be a success, but it's just the details. Like it's not even so much, that it was brilliant dialogue or anything. It's just the love that was put into this movie, and it's still, that you see still in the second feature, second version, second part. It's amazing. It's amazing,
Yeah.
and it holds up.
Yeah. It's not like a studio just wanted to pump out another one of these popular sci-fi films. Definitely the passion project aspect of the earlier
Yeah.
Star Wars really shines through in my opinion. So a little bit about the Mynock sound design. All right. Shrieks of the Mynocks are made of recordings of horses played backward. They had a little library of horse whinnies and snorts and things recorded at a ranch. In some cases, they sped them up, but in every case, running them backward gave them a pretty good Mynock shriek.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I'll say that David W. Collins, supervising sound editor for Lucasfilm, Skywalker Sound, tweeted in regard to the premiere of season 2 of The Bad Batch. There's like this part right at the beginning where there are these like giant crab thingies, and the crab vocals feature several agitated animal calls, but the one that really made them work was horses pitched and sped up. A threatening alien sound, but not overly so. Their leg movement is also pitched, sped up, horses galloping on a beach. So it's interesting. Horses are so, apparently horses, you can do a lot with horse sounds. And I'm assuming horses were also part of the fathiers in The Last Jedi. But
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the whinny of a horse is kind of an unusual animal sound. Like it's different than
True.
most other sounds you can think of. Yeah, there's something about it, and it is kind of has a little bit of a weird urgency to it, the way they
Yeah.
whinny.
It
Yeah,
does. But the backwards thing of the Mynocks, that's
yeah, that's
interesting.
great.
Okay, another thing they did to emphasize the Mynocks is intentionally precede the moment with silence.
Mm,
So more about
yeah.
the absence of sound and the setup, which I think is, I'm really glad that Ben Burtt said that. Ben Burtt said, another rule in sound mixing is that if you want something to sound loud, it's best to precede it by some silence, and a very quiet scene, such that the impact of something coming in suddenly can have all of the greater contrast. This is what was done in the scene with the Mynocks appearing on the outside of the spaceship and jumping onto the windshield to scare everyone. If you'll notice the soundtrack, it's very quiet and almost down to nothing prior to the moment when the sound leaps out at you, along with the visual. Says to be one of the few times any Star Wars movie that we actually paid attention to a life support system on another planet. You never really go anywhere except where there's oxygen to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's taken from various Ben Burtt interviews compiled by In-Depth Sound Design.
Well, also if they didn't have those air masks on, they probably would have smelled how terrible. I mean, the inside of that slug's got to be kind of, yeah. I can imagine, right?
Maybe.
I think the interior of any animal is going to be not pleasant.
Yeah. I would prefer not to experience that.
So they didn't have, they didn't want them to tip that off, as soon as they walk out. It makes sense that they're wearing masks. Yeah.
Yeah. Could have been distracting to have them comment on the smell too. Yeah. Let's see if there's anything else. I don't know. Maybe you might know more about this than me. For electricity sounds, Ben Burtt recorded old Frankenstein props that were made back in the 1930s by Ken Strickland. And I tried to look up Ken Strickland and I'm like, I can't really find much. I don't know. I guess listeners, if you know anything about Ken Strickland or can find links or, I don't know, documentary or something, I'm very interested about this Ken Strickland person who made the Frankenstein props that produce unusual electrical sounds that are used in Star Wars.
Yeah, you can kind of picture that sound of they're pulling the switch and the electricity flowing through Frankenstein. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we have maybe 30 seconds left. Oh, wait, no, I should actually just start playing. I should go back to the minutes so we can hear back to... No, I don't want to do the jump scare again. Okay, let's go past the part where there's the scare.
Then I'm going with you.
Okay.
I think it might be better if I stay behind and guard the ship. Oh, no.
Okay. It is very dark inside the huge asteroid cave. Too dark to see what is attacking the ship. There's the tremolo. There's the slide down.
Ground sure feels strange. Doesn't feel like rock.
It's like the harp and celeste are saying, what is this?
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah. Watch out! It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, what I thought. Mynock. Chewie, check the rest of the ship. Make sure there are no more attached. Chewing on the power cables.
Is there a theremin in this?
Mynock.
Go on inside. We'll clean them off if there are any more.
Not anymore. I can really hear the horses.
Yeah. You can hear the backwardsness.
Yeah. And then that's basically the end of the minutes. Yeah.
Well, then you do hear a little bit at the beginning of the like when they start racing out. Like it does begin just a little bit there.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Right there. Yeah.
They shoot the ground and you start hearing the and I do love that, like that next piece of music, which I don't get to talk about, but that's
why
really
do you like
fun.
it? Oh, because
it's just really well. I mean, it's kind of like, standard, like we got to get the hell out of here music, but it's just really well done.
yeah, it there is when we start getting more of a pace. Like we have, you can turn on that's where, I don't know, conducting wise, like in the part before then, I can imagine the conductor sort of doing small gestures and more so like having to cue each individual thing. And then here is like where they can reset and give us steady beat. We can actually hear a little bit of it. Let's see. A little bit before then.
Yeah, it just starts at the end of this.
Yeah. And yeah. Just in cello and bass. It's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're running.
And they kind of start it before you really know what's going on until you haven't gotten it quite yet. That like, oh, they're well, they don't literally give you the reveal till they fly out, I guess. But it's kind of fun. They get into that really quickly, and then you got it. It's just it's like they just have to get the hell out of there for some reason. Like something Hans figured something out, and he's like, yeah, we gotta go.
Yeah, like the music in a way is more synced to the thought. What they're thinking than the time when they start acting. There's a little delay there. Yeah, that's when we all know, get out of there. Oh, Mynocks.
And the slug's another puppet, I believe. The giant. Well, it's next scene, but yeah, it's another practical effect puppet, I think.
Bigger than my sock puppet.
A little bit bigger, but basically a sock puppet made out of vinyl. Yeah.
Oh, I love that part. It's also like I can't see that. Well, I guess I'll talk about it next week, but I always simultaneously imagine the Star Wars robot chicken. I don't know if you've seen that, like when the space slug comes out.
I'm sure I've seen all of the robot chicken Star Wars specials, but it's been so long I don't remember.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, I guess. I don't know. I usually don't like parodies, but for some reason I like that one.
I gotta look it up. I love parodies.
Okay.
I forget. It's been a while. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Okay, so we are at the end of the minute. Let's see. Do you have any overall thoughts or things that we didn't talk about?
Let's see. No, I think we covered everything. Let me just see. Yoda giggling. Yeah, I got all that stuff. Yep. But I'm so, like I said, I'm glad I got this one. I got puppets. I got a significant Yoda moment and the horror movie thing. So that was perfect for me.
Yeah,
Really happy.
definitely. And I wasn't even thinking of the horror movie part, but that definitely is one of your strong suits.
It worked out. Yeah, I hadn't. Yeah, and it just like hearing it here, even it just hammered it so hard. Every time you hear it, it's a little different.
And when I put if I just look up like May's scene from The Shining.
I think so. It's kind of it's the finale. I don't know if what the name for that might be. But it shouldn't be too hard to find because it's the very, very, very end. It's really pretty much the last scene. Yeah, except for the midnight stars in you ending where the photograph, that beautiful old-timey song with the photograph, but it's right before that.
Okay, cool. I look forward to listening to that or watching it and listening to it. Okay, let me review the cues and everything. The cues in this set of minutes were 6M2, Yoda's teaching, or Yodel's teaching, and 6M3, This Is Not a Cave. The musical themes we heard were the Force theme, the main theme, A section, and Yoda's theme, both the A and B section. And if you're listening to the soundtrack, like the special edition soundtrack, this is the track called Jedi Master Revealed / Mynock Cave. And it's all in one track. I think those are the only stats. I think that's all the stats. Are you ready to take the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire again?
Sure.
Okay. I don't always warn returning guests because you've already taken it. So I can tell you your old answers. It's more than anything, it's an opportunity to say something new or, just see if your instincts will lead you to the same place that they already did. All right. Do you want to hear your answers first or do you want to just?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So question number 1 is, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like? And before you said droids, flight, and pew.
Pew. Yeah, so I'll change that. Well, I might
You're
as well.
adding to it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll think more because I was thinking, so to me it was like, special effects were so important that I kind of went that way, but also I'll talk more this time. I'll speak more towards the soundtrack. I'll say triumph, threat, and enchantment.
I like that. Enchantment. I think that's a new one.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I almost was going to say magic, but I thought no, enchantment kind of captures it a little more. But it's what we were talking about, that sort of storybook quality, you know.
Totally. I think enchantment captures that really well. Question number 2 is, what's something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about? Do you want to hear your old answer?
Yeah.
It's, how do they come up with the sound of alien languages?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I was thinking this time, it's sort of silly, and I'm sure it's covered somehow somewhere. But I would love to know what Williams struggled most with, like what he found the most difficult to write. You know, just like what kind of stuck him and took him a long time to figure out. I don't know why. That seems
I would love to know that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mean like anything that he found difficult, or do you mean sort of like things that he had to go back and change, or that, the directors didn't like, and so he had to keep reworking?
No, I think more like what he found difficult to come up with for whatever reasons, like he just kind of found it difficult to hash it out for whatever reason. I don't know.
I really want to know that too. That's a good one. Yeah, we don't hear about that one very often. It sort of seems like he always knows what to do for the character. But yeah, I do want to know which ones he's like, I can't pin that character down yet, or like, I need to watch this movie again to get a sense of that. Yeah.
Everything's so perfect. Everything's so perfectly done that it almost, you can almost, you picture it just like coming out of him, flowing out of him so easily. But that can't be true. There had to have been some points where he was stumped.
Yeah. Or maybe took 2 different directions and then had to decide on one or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question number 3 is, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars? I think you can probably guess what you already said, but you said Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
Composed by Christoph Komeda.
Yeah, we had discussed it a little bit at the beginning. But so I will say this time, I loved Andor, and I loved the music. And I mean, that theme when he finds out his mother died, really I thought it was so beautiful. I've listened to it many times since. And so that's Nicholas Britell, or is it Brittle?
Britell. Mm-hmm.
Britell. And so, he did Moonlight, Don't Look Up. I think both of those soundtracks are amazing. And so I I'm going to plug him in general as a composer. He's just, I didn't know anything about him, and I had seen Don't Look Up, and, just hadn't noticed how great the music was. It was nice to, when I fell in love with that song in Andor, and then looking into his work, I was like, oh, he's really special. So I'm a fan now. So that's who I'll say.
Andor, Don't Look Up, and Moonlight is what you were mainly.
Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah,
I haven't actually seen Don't Look Up, so I haven't.
It's really good. It's very good. Very good.
Okay, who directed?
He also did Succession. That was Adam McKay. Don't Look Up, I believe, was Adam McKay.
Okay,
comedy guy. Yeah, that's unusually. Yeah, it's really it was very good.
Yeah, he also did Succession, like you said, and If Beale Street. Wait, what is that movie? The Beale Street movie.
Yeah, I didn't write it all down.
If Beale Street Could Talk, I think. Yeah. That's a good one. No one has said Andor. No one has. Yeah, I'm surprised no one has said Andor yet.
It's not often a piece of music from a soundtrack or from television just hits me. I couldn't stop listening. It just really hit me like, oh God, that was just really moved me. It really stood out. So I had to follow that trail.
Yeah, it was a beautiful scene. What a fantastic show that was. That is. Anyway, Susan, where can people find like your very many projects that you have going on?
Well, so what I'm doing now, I've been not putting out as much because I actually went back to school. I'm a little too old for this, but I went back to school.
No,
getting a graduate degree, maybe a PhD. I don't know. But so I'm really busy, but I've been I want to keep going with Comedy Film Funnel. So that's my YouTube show with Joe Dater, Star Wars Minute fan favorite, Joe Dater, New Yorker cartoonist Joe Dater. And so we're trying to keep that going as much as we can. Just haven't had that much time, but we just talk about comedy films, like one movie per episode. And then again, I have my old series, The Shining 237 is a podcast series, and Rosemary's Baby 666, which I am now recording the finale. I never did the final episode, and it's like almost in the bag. So just so people know, that's really going to end, but I had finished it like a year ago and never did the final episode, so that's going to happen. Yeah, I know but I'm interviewing the Antichrist for the finale, and it's hard to get he's hard to get. So I finally got him to sit down and talk with me. Yeah. And I even got Jesus and the Buddha to join us in sort of a panel discussion. So that's the finale. It's coming. I think I might put it out even maybe Easter or something like that, but it's coming. So stay tuned.
Nice. Yeah. What podcast was your Christoph Komeda?
Rosemary's Baby 666.
Oh, it was on that podcast. Okay.
Yeah, I just never did the final episode.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your semester. I don't know. Have you gone back yet?
Yeah. No, I'm going back in a week.
Okay, cool.
But thank you so much for inviting me. Like I said, I've enjoyed the series so much. Like, oh my gosh, your guests are just amazing. And like, shout out to all the guests who've been on, because it's just been so much fun and really wonderful people. So,
well, thank you. And also, I also am shouting out all the guests. Everyone has been amazing. I guess that's now that we're more than halfway through with this film. Are we? Yeah. Now I think we have just gotten to the halfway point. The rest of the season, we're going to be continuing on Dagobah. We're going to be getting to Cloud City kind of soon-ish. And of course, the carbon freezing chamber is yet to come. And the climactic battle between Luke and his father. So lots to look forward to for the rest of the season. And you can find Star Wars Music Minute on most of the usual social media places. But, not all of them, because who has time? That said, I always love to hear any corrections, any information that you have. I read everything, even if I don't respond. So I've gotten some really great listener sort of tips and tip-offs, I guess, this season. So if you do have something to say or to kind of nudge me about, definitely let me know. You can email me at podcast@starwarsmusicminute.com. You can tweet at me. You can tell me on Discord. And yeah, I would love to hear it. All right. That's all for today. Thanks so much for listening. May the Force be with you, and see you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.